Hi everyone, this is HJ here. So, I've got to tell you, Windows is awesome, but every now and then I was wondering what other operating systems are there besides Windows and Mac. And then I had an idea. I thought I'd switch over to Chrome OS for a few hours to a day to see what I could find. And here's what I found. First things first, switching to Chrome OS, for those who don't know, isn't as easy as switching back to Windows. After digging and digging, I found an article from Shake Up Tech which explains how to do it. I will leave a link in the episode description for those interested. The process involves moving to Chrome OS Flex from a bootable media, then from there moving to Chrome OS from Chrome OS Flex using another bootable media. The problem is, when I tried to do this, it was slow for me, and sometimes the system Windows would actually strip out the write terms from me so that I could not write the bootable media or the ISO file without me even doing anything to the system settings. At least when I tried it anyways. So once I got that problem resolved, and once I switched from Windows 11 to Chrome OS, I did my usual. I pre-installed my updates and my favorite software and a couple of games, and I got to work. The software experience is pretty cool, and on a device that originally supports Windows only, worked really well. The things that I missed, I could use my gaming laptop for. The device I'm using to write this script right now, or at least I had used to write this script, actually really would work for the type of apps that I wanted to use that I couldn't get on Chrome OS, so I was perfectly fine switching over to Chrome OS. After I installed the updates, I tested out some apps. First, obviously, I tried Chrome, because, Chrome is very similar to Microsoft Edge. In fact, minus Copilot, the code for the program is almost exactly the same and is Chromium-based. This being the case, this was nothing new to me. I signed into my Google accounts and went right along. And then I thought, what about some video editing apps or some photo editing? And what's available to me? So after I installed everything that I needed to install, I installed CapCut and Canva and tried both apps out. And I was really easily impressed. And my 32 gigabytes of RAM installed, plus my, once again, Windows 11 supported Core i5 1135G7, could handle both with flying colors. And this being the case, I tried editing some photos and editing some videos. And it worked really seamless and was really smooth. The big benefit to using Chrome OS with this is that most of these were sort of web-based, but not entirely web-based. So I had a little bit more functionality and wiggle room to work with in terms of how I could access it. And I wanted to go a little bit further. And I know gaming is supposed to be a Windows and Mac thing, but I really wanted to game. So this is where an issue struck me. Unfortunately, unless you have a gaming Chromebook, which at their price point compared to a gaming laptop is worthless, you can't run Steam or EA or Epic or Ubisoft or any other native launcher or game. The only games that work are the games designed for Android mobile, ARM, and of course cloud gaming. And of course newly, Minecraft. So I tried Minecraft first. And this being Bedrock Edition, of course, Minecraft was a really fun experience. So fun, in fact, that I even loaded up a creative map with mini mods for Bedrock Edition, of course. And then from there, I decided, hey, this works, and I wanted to try cloud gaming. Now, me personally, I have Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, which is an incredible value compared to other Game Pass alternatives. So I hooked up to my Wi-Fi, and I tried the game. But there is another downside. The drawback is that it only works with decent Wi-Fi, and anything outside of your home Wi-Fi, even the 5G data plan, which actually is the minimum requirement for cloud gaming for whatever reason on mobile, does not seem to work outside of a certain download speed, which in my case, I have gig speed across the board. So whenever my download speed is at 300 megabytes per second, it generally works well. Regardless, anything in a Starbucks or anything in a rural area away from home or anywhere out in the open just wouldn't play well and would freeze or lag with latency issues constantly. So I didn't try GeForce Now for this test because I was like, well, if it's going to lag out in public, then that kind of defeats the purpose of doing it. And I also wanted to check the battery. So speaking of battery life, by the time I finished the process of testing, the battery life really wasn't that much better than Windows, and that's probably because with Google Chromebooks, the power management provided by Google is available. But since I was coming over from a Windows device, the power management settings set by the OEM probably weren't necessarily compatible with the Chrome OS operating system that I had installed on a Windows OEM device. And even though the battery life was a little bit better, it was only a nominal percentage from my usual normal daily usage. And this is at full brightness, by the way, so if you turn the brightness down, you could get a little bit better battery life and some larger margins. But regardless, the battery life of many Chromebooks is really good anyways. For example, when I was in school, and this being high school, of course, and using a Chromebook, it lasted an entire 7-hour school day. So by comparison, doing a Windows laptop to a Chromebook doesn't really improve battery life. It simply just remains the same, unfortunately. And I wish it would be better, but in order to get the Chrome OS support on Windows, there are certain things that they have to do, and that being the case, they were not able to get the power management settings that Google obviously uses for their native Chromebooks. And I know I have mentioned some app compatibility. The problem with Chrome OS is that not all apps are compatible. Some apps, like Microsoft Office, only work with the web version, and some, like most Windows games, just don't work at all without cloud gaming. Unless they're mobile apps or games, then maybe you can get a mobile app or a game here or there, but not all of them have controller support, and it's really annoying. And of course, I really do wish Chrome OS had the compatibility it needs to run everything. Unfortunately, Google can't force developers to work with its hardware. Devs for any device can't make everything work on everything, so especially Chrome OS, given the software, without the needed tools. And partners like Microsoft are still competitors in some parts also, so you have to keep that in mind. And these are all factors, I believe, that contribute to the Chrome OS compatibility issue. But if they have the right tools available to developers, they have the right incentives, and they work closely with partners like Microsoft or Apple, I'm sure they could figure out a solution to get this app compatibility issue resolved. But with all of these core aspects aside, my experience was generally okay. But if I had to choose between Windows and Chrome OS, I'd likely choose Windows, and I'd only recommend Chrome OS for general educational settings, enterprise settings, work areas, or normal use settings where power, app compatibility, and graphic design or dedicated GPUs is never an issue. For college students and workers who require a dedicated GPU for their line of work, and gamers or anybody who needs something other than a Chromebook, I would only recommend Windows or Mac OS, since app functionality and compatibility is generally known to be relatively universal between the two, with some minor exceptions here and there, and you can get better usage and hardware with some exceptions as well. So that all aside, that's my Chrome OS experience, and it was generally a mixed bag, and I'm really happy to report that if you really are in the market for a Chromebook, then consider getting one. Nobody's going to stop you from doing that, obviously, but if you have an app or something that you really want to use on Windows, or you're comfortable with Windows or Mac OS, or Linux for that matter, and you really need that ecosystem, then I would stay with Windows and Mac. And I would argue that Chrome OS is probably not for you. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow my podcast on Spotify. Hit me up on Twitter, and I will catch you guys in the next episode.